Yo!
Pistol and swinging saber.
Oh!
Confounded and rattled.
Alright, more suggestions by me.
It is late autumn,
17th century.
and in the great halls of the Holy Roman Empire,
My favorite
the
part
commands of the Emperor
of history.
the and Elector Frederick William of Brandenburg have made a fateful.
This is such a beautiful map. This
Following
is
the
so beautiful.
of the Palatinate by the forces of the French King Louis XIV, and with French gains in the war against the Dutch Republic increasing on the victory of the Great Conde at Senef the previous August, the Imperial Alliance has decided that France itself will be subject to invasion, and the war taken to the very soil of the Sun King.
Louis
To this
the
end, a huge
14th.
army under Alexander de
Is that 14th or 15th? I don't know.
Bournonville, Count
I
of
think,
Guinin
yeah,
Lucas,
14th,
moves
yeah,
like
yeah.
a juggernaut and occupies the neutral city of Strasbourg, using it as a bridgehead to cross the Rhine and move into French.
Violating international
To
law?
oppose this
Question mark.
force, Louis can only call on his stalwart, Henri de la Tour d'Auvergne, known to all simply as Turenne, and a relatively paltry 30,000 French soldiers. Turenne's difficult cause is made exponentially more acute by the news that a second Brandenburger army under the Grand Elector himself is en route to link up with Bournonville, a development that would render almost any set-piece battle between the two sides a foregone conclusion. With the Emperor's company still pouring over the Rhine, Turenne moves out to save France from what is almost certain to be a ruinous onslaught. The French state of Louis XIV is a wonder of the early modern age. Not only does it lead Europe in science, art, and philosophy, the king heads the first regular army in a millennium that approaches those of the ancient Caesars in size and capability. While the medieval armies of the French kings had numbered barely over 10,000 men during peacetime and increased by one or twofold by the hiring of mercenaries or the drafting of high nobility and their retainers, Louis had built on the considerable advancements of his namesake father. And now, with his conflict against the Dutch and the Empire raging all around his borders, his army numbers close to 300,000 men, an astronomical force. Yet only a fraction of these are available to Turenne in the declining months of 1674. The main French field army is to the north with Conde, mopping up in the aftermath of Senef, and the rest are occupied with operations against the still dangerous Spanish in the shadow of the Pyrenees to the south. Turenne looks at his situation while Bournonville musters to reduce the Rhineland, and he realizes that to sit in a defensive posture is to invite his already fragile force to melt away due to desertion and disease over the debilitating winter. The Frenchman thus decides that élan will be the order of the day, and he sets out to confront his enemies and prevent their union. With Bournonville's main force at Ansheim, Turenne arrives at Molsheim on the 3rd of October, having marched his men through the night. This position has the effect of disrupting Bournonville's contact with his main headquarters at Strasbourg, but Turenne is not finished yet. The next day, the 4th of October, he marches out from Molsheim to confront the Imperials. Bournonville is confident enough in his superiority to march and meet the French, but he deploys in a defensive posture, reasonably gauging that the cold and precipitous conditions will favor the stationary host. When Turenne surveys the imperial host, he notes that its center is formed around the village of Ansheim itself, with woods on both the right and left flanks. The woods to Bournonville's right are far enough away by the river Ile to be of little disturbance, but the woods on the Imperial left will be vital if Turenne is to break the enemy's centre and take control of the village. As such, he orders his lines to focus on an attack there at the outset. Both armies deploy in the front and reserve lines, with cavalry on the wings. The influence of the great Swedish king, General Gustavus Adolphus, is still seen 4 decades on from his death in Turenne's deployment of infantry support units placed between his cavalry squadrons. Interestingly, the French army also contains a British contingent, 4 regiments in total, who were a holdover from the earlier official English involvement in the war. Though it
What the hell? We have the British and the French working together. No, I know you guys might be saying, "Oh, well, that's pretty like not too crazy. We've seen it a lot." But guys, it's the 17th century. It's the 17th century. 17th century Britain and France was still like in the heat of their rivalry. That's why I had to laugh at that.
Secret. Charles II has promised Louis of France that he will eventually return England to the Catholic fold when the time is correct. In the meantime, Louis will give him much needed funding in return for
the black hair is so beautiful. The black hair is honestly so beautiful. Like, screw that blonde hair, freaking stupid beauty standard. Black hair, bruh. That's where it's at.
For the initial attack on the wood, Turenne elects to utilize infantry and a dragoon unit to be sent forth to the trees. 8 battalions of foot, plus the mounted detachment. They move quickly toward the thicket. The artillery duel between the 8 French artillery pieces in their front line against the Imperial guns, churning up clots of earth amidst the companies and filling the air with a quaking roar. There is no movement from the woods. The French soldiers hurrying toward the tree line begin to dream that Bournonville has been overwhelmed by Turenne's sudden appearance after the forced march and somehow overlooked the strategic point. They come within the last 100 yards and are allowed one more moment of exquisite optimism before a sharp snap emits from the woods. And the hidden Imperial force opens up and cuts down the front line of French marauders.
Oh shit.
Bournonville has indeed recognized the importance of the woods, and so they have been solidly reinforced with 8 guns, as well as half a dozen battalions of infantry.
This is tough.
Who are now firing on the floundering Frenchmen.
Oh my gosh, this is...
The dragoons attempt to charge, but it comes to naught save death and injury. And even though the French officers quickly bring their men to order and fire in volleys, the hidden enemy within the woods has an open target on Turenne's men in the open. The French infantry and dragoons try again.
They're still pushing for... Yo, honestly, respect, bruh.
Woods are too well defended.
He's still pushing forward.
Withdrawal is the only option, save suicidal frontal attack.
Oh my gosh.
Setback.
How are you gonna clutch this up?
He must have the woods if he is to have the battle, and so he draws companies from the reserve. 2 of the regiments from the reinforcements are of the British Brigade, and they number amongst their officers one John Churchill, the future Duke of Marlborough, and a man pivotal to British and European history. In spite of Churchill's presence amidst...
Isn't that Winston Churchill's ancestor? If I'm not mistaken, right? I could be wrong, right? I think he
his
could be.
compatriots. The second operation to seize the woods is no more successful than the first, and the 2 sides settle into a grim back and forth of musket and small artillery fire. The October cold has not abated with the onset of afternoon, and the rain has continued to fall, hampering the ability of both sides to bring their main guns to bear in the contest. Turenne ratchets up the pressure on the units in the woods by sending a cavalry detachment around to attempt an envelopment from the far side of the tree line. But to the commander Vaubrum's dismay, they discover that Bournonville has placed no fewer than 8 battalions behind the main force in reserve.
Jeez, yo!
The onrushing cavalrymen, stinging musket volleys cutting riders down from every direction. Bournonville himself, watching the proceedings with satisfaction, decides that the moment has come for action, and with his French opponent stretched thin on his lines, and with companies out of position,
what I was looking at.
An advance. The attack is quick and strong enough that the Imperial mounted right quickly push back and scatter their opposite numbers on the French side. But though outnumbered, the French centre and left wing reserve hold, and the soft ground soon turns to morass for the Imperial infantry and their rear units. They cannot bring their advantage to bear, and the French guns now have the advantage of range.
Okay.
They cut deep holes in the Imperial lines, and when the offensive has juddered to a certain halt, a counterattack begins. The French left having regrouped, and the Imperial lines are pushed back to their initial positions. Simultaneously, the focus on the main action has taken Imperial attention from the woods, and the combined French and British forces are at last able to cut through the defenses and take the position.
Big error. Big error. Honestly, what I was thinking is that he was going to hold his defensive posture and force the French to whittle down in the woods, which would eventually just expose their flanks, and then launch the attack from their weakened flanks that was attacking the woods. But I guess not. The moment I heard freaking like full frontal assault, I was like, yeah, that may have you may have just sold your advantage that you literally just had there.
The French advance across the entire field, but they are finding the same problems of terrain the Imperials suffered during their offensive.
Okay.
The French guns cannot be brought forward, and the conditions are worsening as the light starts to fade.
But this is such a stalemate.
Vauban regulates his company and squadrons, and then with a flourish of trumpets that sounds flattened in falling mist, a major charge is mounted over the sodden ground toward Ansheim itself. Bournonville's units steel themselves, and the officers and commanders beat men into line as the riders encroach out of the gloom. Pistol and musket flash like lightning strikes out of the grey, and the sabres and bayonets are deployed in a struggle that results in terrible wounds. Grenadiers to the fore in both sides lock weapons, but the Imperial guns are now in the advantage, and the French are forced back when the Imperials hold their line. The French guns reach a position of range, and they begin to bombard the enemy line while the dusk finally settles in for the night. Bournonville has seen enough, and he begins an organized withdrawal. Turenne, eventually seeing any gains will have to go unpursued in the dark, and that more attacks will only lead to further losses, begins to do the same. Only a holding force of French cavalry is left on the field, and that too departs into the night. The French call the Battle of Ansheim a great victory, but the fact is that Bournonville and the Great Elector can now unite and still stand ready to invade France again when the new campaign season begins in the spring. Thus, Turenne elects to do what no one expects, and many believe to be impossible.
Invade.
At his new headquarters in Dietwiller, he prepares for a winter offensive.
Yeah, I called it.
Louis comes to ascent. And
Before we continue, bruh, I swear I did not watch this video, but bruh, it's like the most logical thing to do. Bro, I explained this in like one of my reactions. I forgot which video it was, but like a lot of people didn't watch it back then. But if you watched it, good for you. But most people watching this don't know what I said. I used to play this game a couple years back. I don't even play games anymore, but I used to play this game. Just hear me out, all right? On Roblox, called The Conquerors 3. Maybe some of you know it, maybe some of you don't. But bro, basically in a nutshell, you basically have like your own, just imagine these cities as like your base, right? Because literally that's basically what it was. Like, and then the opponents have like their own bases, and the whole goal is to basically make an army and destroy the other opponent's base. And you have to literally micro, okay? There's like different types of troops, like tanks, like freaking planes, all that, okay? And you physically have to like micro them. The game is super micro heavy, right? Not just that, but you also need to like make sure your economy is slow. I'm just giving you a simplification so you understand what I'm about to say. Guys, every single time where I'm in a situation where I'm on the defensive and I realize, oh shit, this person has a much bigger army than me. Because these, you see these squares right here? Literally, it's very similar to that. Honestly, the whole concept, right? Like how literally, like the squares are basically like soldiers. Just think of it like that. And think of how he has like more squares than him, as he just has a bigger army. It was literally basically like that. So whenever I realize like shit, I'm outnumbered, and if I stay on the defensive, I'm cooked like beyond belief. Always, I just take the gamble of, okay, screw it, I'm gonna go launch a big offensive into his territory before he freaking kills me, because that's the best thing to do in a situation like that. Because remember, like I said, the game is also really heavy on economy, right? Like you have to make sure that your economy throughout the territory that you control is functioning well, right? So the best option that I always did was just launch an offensive so that he can't destroy my base. Because if he destroys my base, I'm done. I'm basically screwed, right? Think of the base as your literal capital, because basically it is. And like the surrounding like cities as like economic generators, right? Like tax revenue generators or like resource generators, you know. So the amount of times where I've turned the tables because of this shit, I'm talking like I am just on the verge of losing. Like I'm like near besiege, and I'm like, screw it, I need to divert attention from my capital before he comes to destroy that shit. I need to just full on mobile warfare, just beeline it through his territory and just do as much destruction as possible. In some instances, even force his army to split and force him to spend money on defensive buildings, which, you know, I could easily destroy because I have my whole army there, which will force him to go basically bankrupt, and his army would be at a freaking standstill. Guys, yo, bruh, the amount of times that has worked, like that game, honestly, like it's just a game, but the amount of strategy, like you actually had to use your head, bro. You actually had to use your head on that game. Like, it wasn't just freaking, oh, you make a freaking big ass army and you win. Nah, you actually had to use your head on that game, because even with a big army, you could still lose all that shit if someone is more competent than you and they freaking come. But bro, the amount of times where I was just on the back end, bruh, and I'm like, yep, big gamble. Like, that game has given me such a big, just expanded my knowledge, or I don't know what the hell the word I'm trying to say, but it just really helped me develop a big sense of strategic thinking overall throughout anything. So when I saw this, I'm like, okay, he's on the back end. Like, there's only one thing he can do that's best in this situation: go on the attack. Like, you need to go on the attack to combine their armies. Because I was in plenty of situations where, like, you know, not just like 1v1s, or I'm talking like I have allies too, right? And my ally is freaking dumb. He don't know what the hell he's doing. And the two enemies are more, because sometimes it could be a lot more. But like, you have a situation where two armies are about to combine, and I'm like, shit, if they combine their armies, I'm done. You know, I quickly just go on the attack to stop that from happening, to just throw them off, and to force, like, just to cause a big panic, bro. Yo, I got some crazy stories I could tell from that game. Like, I remember one time where I encircled an army. I literally pulled a Hannibal. I literally pulled a straight Hannibal and encircled someone who had a larger army. But that's a different story for another time. That is probably the greatest shit that I've ever done. You might be saying, oh, it's just a game. Nah, bro. You wouldn't understand unless you play that game yourself.
The army of Conde, the king sends 20 infantry battalions and 24 cavalry squadrons to aid in the effort. The man who has virtually invented the role of Minister for War, Francois-Michel Letellier, the Marquis of Louvois, begins the organization of the massive amount of food, fodder and clothes for the men who will fight the winter battles. Turenne also receives around 6,000 men under the command of the Marquis of Créqui, but he dismisses them within 7 days, for they are ill-disciplined, old-style units raised by entitled nobles, and the French army is now a place for real fighting men, professional soldiers in all but name. As the snow starts to fall and Turenne waits for Bournonville and the Elector to let down their guards, Louis puts the royal power behind an even greater effort to draw supplies from the nearby provinces to keep the army in the field.
Yo, Louis the 14th, bro. No wonder why they call this guy probably the best French ruler ever.
Waiting in freezing conditions, Bournonville and Frederick William take their armies out of the field and into Colmar and Celestat to see out the season. It is the moment Turenne has been waiting for. He makes a show of going into winter quarters himself, placing token garrisons in towns like Saverne, Haguenau, Rambervillers, and Remiremont. But instead of staying in camp, he sets out with his strongest men and animals 2 weeks before Christmas. It is a bold move. To elude spies and scouts, he leads his men through a snowstorm and heads for the Vosges Mountains. He breaks the army into smaller detachments to take different routes, and over the next fortnight they battle against the cold to reach Alsace. Finally, they emerge from the beach and spruce-lined trails to the shock of the townspeople of Belfort as they ready themselves for the holy season of Christ's birth.
Can we go 1080p? Yeah, that looks so much better.
Bournonville is spread out across Alsace, thinking they have the region secured. But Turenne catches them off guard. On December 29th, he crosses the Ila River and launches a surprise attack near the town of Mulhouse, a strategic spot close to the Rhine River. Bournonville did not expect the French to show up in the middle of winter. The scattered Imperials scrambled, but could not effectively coordinate a defense. Turenne's winter maneuver was risky, but it paid off. Led by Montauban, the French cavalry strikes hard and fast, hitting the Imperial left held by Hermann of Baden-Baden. The Imperials had managed to take a defensive position, with their left resting on the forest and their right anchored near the town. But the French frontal assault is a feint. The real pressure is yet to come. Turenne had secretly reinforced his right wing with a large concentration of troops, including elite cavalry and fresh infantry. These reinforcements were concealed during the initial approach and brought up quickly to swing around the Imperial left. The French right, now heavily bolstered, threatened to outflank the Imperial left.
Every time I hit a...
The shock of this sudden mass of fresh French troops caused the collapse of Hermann's left wing. Once the left gave way, the rest of the Imperial line became exposed and started to fall back in disorder. Hermann attempted to organize...
Bro, you know what's so crazy about like these type of battles? Bro, literally, that game I was talking about, bro, it's literally like these boxes, bro. Like the only difference is that they have like physical like soldier statues, and you just throw them at each other, and it's just all crushing into each other. But you know, there's different units with different stats, like tanks, obviously, sniper, blah blah blah. But they all basically are like these boxes, and you just crush them into each other, bro. That's why it's super micro heavy, because you can even like put them in like formations too and whatnot, right? So yeah, like every time I react to these battles, I'm like, wow.
But the French cavalry, especially those from the reinforced right wing, pressed hard and turned the withdrawal into a rout. Although not a major pitched battle, Mulhouse was an important, sharp action that gave the French control over Alsace. Turenne's surprise winter campaign had arguably flipped the momentum in France's favor and showed just how brilliant and daring the French commander could be. Turenne orders his 30,000 men to proceed to Colmar. By now, Bournonville and the Great Elector, who had arrived in the wake of Ensheim, had realized the staggering audacity of their opponent's maneuver, and they rushed to take their unconditioned men from their billets and back into the field. On the 5th of January, on a field near the road between Colmar and Turkheim, a manic and wild-eyed army of Frenchmen comes face to face once more with the bemused and agitated army of the Holy Roman Empire, along with their Brandenburger allies. French scouts reconnoiter the Imperial positions in the dark and see that it stretches almost the entire length between the two towns, with the Imperial right at Turkheim and the left at Colmar. This left flank is protected by the Loch, Thur and Iller rivers, while the right is bordered by the Fech, of which a tributary seems to run entirely in front of the army's forward position. When the weak and late winter sun starts to rise, Turenne can see for himself that the natural boundaries have been augmented by artillery batteries, as well as ramparts and balustrades. Bournonville and Frederick William have done well. Turenne's army is roughly the same strength as that which he commanded at Ensheim, being in the order of 30,000 men. Bournonville's army is still larger, however, anywhere from a couple of thousand greater than Turenne's roster to 50,000 in total. Again, taking a defensive posture, they await Turenne's opening moves, which come around 11 o'clock. Marching forward from the center with an emphasis on their right wing, the French make for the Colmar positions.
That's interesting.
This advance is led by the Comte de Lorge, who spreads his men out as far as possible, looking for crossing points over the river to the imperial positions beyond.
Interesting tactic.
But most of their heavy ordnance could not be brought through the mountains on the march. Nevertheless, the offensive is sustained to such a degree that Bournonville and Frederick William begin moving troops from the center and the environs of Turckheim to reinforce their left. Once again, this is the action for which Turenne has been waiting. He has secreted himself on his own far left wing, behind a hill in a gorge which led between two spurs of the Vosges mountains. From there, Turenne leads his concealed force on a wide march around the gorge, emerging at the Fech River on the outskirts of Turckheim. In the meantime, the battle at the center and around Colmar continues with constant exchanges, but the two infantry centers of the armies grapple from a distance, the blizzards of musket balls never extending to a close order clash with bayonets. The Imperials, realizing their mistake in ignoring their right, rush units into Turckheim. 6 guns, 12 battalions and several squadrons of cavalry. But Turenne, despite holding the advantage, decides to pause the assault. The battle settles for a time into a deadlock, with the Turckheim forces awaiting imminent deadly attack, and the main armies in Colmar still battling on in vicious but limited forays. Finally, when it appears that the Imperials will not simply withdraw from the field and spare the necessity of a costly fight, Turenne gives the order to advance at 3 o'clock. His cavalry unit, waiting with exceeding discipline,
Let's see.
Imperial guns from Turckheim for what seemed like hours, now surge forward like furies unleashed from Tartarus, crossing the freezing river as though it were not there, and pistol and swinging saber, confounded and rattled enemy.
Oh my God.
Everything happens in a rush. The Imperial defenders flee Turckheim, and Turenne is able to bring infantry into the village while his cavalry move forward to secure the outer section.
French cavalry. I think French cavalry is probably, like, I would not want to face against French cavalry. Dude, French knights, medieval times, were like the juggernauts of Europe. Even then, like, French cavalry just overall, honestly, top notch, SS ranking, bro. I don't think no other kind of European cavalry, maybe the Cossacks. The Cossacks did give the French one hell of a freaking run when freaking France tried to invade Russia, but French cavalry is just devastating, bruh.
But the Imperials launch a counterattack, brimming out of their still intact center and with the regrouped elements of their right wing. For a moment, all hangs in the balance. The Imperials have the opportunity to catch Turenne's attack force and turn them, upending the result of the day and handing the French general a defeat that will open the doors of France to them. They might even come close to capturing or killing Turenne himself, for he is now in the town and caught up in the fighting. His cavalry commander Foucault has already been killed.
Shit.
The Imperials get within the town once more, and they can feel the hand of Providence at their back, pushing them forward. But they run into a wall of French muskets, fired with a frequency born of interminable drill and deadly accuracy.
Shit! Oh, shit!
The bravest men at the front.
Oh!
And then the attack pauses, giving the remaining French cavalry their moment to charge forward.
Oh, yeah. Clutch.
The Imperial
Clutch.
assault is
Right there.
repulsed, and retreat is the only option. The setting of the sun almost immediately after puts paid to any thoughts of forming another attack. Turenne holds the village, and when the sun rises next morning, he sees that Bournonville and the Great Elector have gone, robbing him of the chance of annihilating their army in its entirety, but leaving thousands of the dead in their wake. Turenne moves on and occupies Colmar, where he finds that the Imperials have left behind 3,000 of the injured in their rush over the Rhine and back to Strasbourg. The Rhineland is French once more, and Turenne, with his veritably insane gamble in crossing mountains during the midst of winter, has saved his nation from certain invasion and ruination. Louis awards him titles and cash rewards, and the Sun King's rule continues in the ascendant over the greatest power in Europe. If you like what you see,
Yo, what a G. The goat. The goat, bruh. The goat. That was good. That was good. Look, bruh, if you have any videos like this you want me to react to, definitely comment in the comments below. If you made it all the way here, you let my reactions, you like what I have to say in my videos, subscribe. All right, subscribe, turn that bell notifications on. Excellent video. 10 out of 10, bro. 10 out of freaking 10, bro. That was great. Freaking hell. If you're an active viewer, like I said before, check out my channel membership. It's only 99 cents a month. Why should you check it out? Well, when you become a member for only 99 cents a month, your suggestions are done much more quicker. Comments are replied to much more faster. You get more insider knowledge of what's going on with my channel and future type of content I will be doing. Yes, because like I said, I will be expanding my channel a lot. So keep that in mind. All right. Thank you for watching and goodbye.